Hello, you're listening to Storytelling Saga, the podcast that shares stories. I'm your host, Allie, and this week I'm discussing Fleabag, created by, written by, and starring Phoebe Waller-Bridge. I first heard of this show back in 2018 on this podcast, in fact. It was the very first guest I had on this podcast, way back in episode 13, when I interviewed Jerry Persigian, and he mentioned to me, he said, "Have you heard of Fleabag?" And I said, "No, what is that?" And he said, "Oh, you would love Fleabag." And so it took me this long to finally watch it, but it's about time I finally watched it because, my God, it is absolutely phenomenal. And I do remember that it won several Emmy Awards. So when it won back at the Emmys, I believe it was 2019 when it won, I knew I had wanted to watch it, but it took me this long to finally watch it. But it won for Outstanding Comedy Series, Outstanding Lead Actress for Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and Outstanding Writing for a Comedy Series. And the show actually, first, it's based on her one-woman show that she performed back in 2013. About this character named Fleabag. So when Jerry told me about the show, he said, "Oh, but it's just really raunchy. Just don't tell your mom I told you to watch it." And so that's what I was expecting going into it. I just figured, okay, it's going to be a filthy show. And sex is a big part of it, but at the core of it is it's so heartbreaking. And this woman who really is just in pain and just kind of not wanting to deal with all of that. So instead just turning to fucking a lot. The show is just, oh my God, I don't mean to be all hyperbolic already about it, but it's fucking amazing. If you haven't seen it, I'm going to strongly suggest you watch it. It is available to watch on Amazon Prime. And I don't have Amazon Prime, as I've mentioned, but I was able to watch it because you could just do a temporary trial. And anyway, it's only 12 episodes. The UK, they call them series, so 2 series, 6 episodes each, and that's it, 12 episodes. So you could easily watch the entire show in one sitting. Personally, I don't recommend that, though. What I did actually was I purposely only watched 1 episode per day. I figured, well, the show is so short already. Let me just watch it. Let me not watch them all at once and just savor the series and just let it all sink in and just kind of really enjoy the story. So that's what I recommend doing, but to each their own. So just the writing blew me away. And then what I love doing is after I watched the pilot, I actually looked up and read the pilot script. I did that for that one and also for that's all it's available online anyway. I watched the pilot, then I read the script, and then with series 2, episode 1, there was the script as well available online. So I read that one after watching the episode. And it's really mostly the same, but I just love here and there are just these little instances getting deeper into the psyche of the characters that don't necessarily always translate on screen, so just getting to read it, it's incredible. This is one of those shows where it just inspires me so much to write a show like this. I've had only a handful of shows that are just so inspiring to me that just kind of inspire me as a writer and just make me stop and think, wow, I want to write a show like this someday. It's so incredible. The voice of this show is so strong. These characters, my God, it just blew me away just right from the beginning. So I really, truly applaud Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Phenomenal writer. My goodness, I'll just keep saying phenomenal because I can't say that and I can't stress enough how incredible this show is. What an emotional journey these 12 episodes take you on. Incredible. And obviously the whole conceit of the show is how she breaks the fourth wall constantly to look at us, the audience. And it's insight into what she's really thinking in that moment or what she's really feeling or giving exposition here and there. And obviously other shows do this. A big one, of course, is The Office, which also originated in the UK. I think the UK, they're just phenomenal writers. And I think truly it's because quality over quantity. This show could have easily gone on for several seasons and I would have loved it, but it's just great that it's just this one contained story within these 12 episodes. And really each series, you can look at them as separate chapters of Fleabag's life. So going into this, I didn't really know anything about it other than the fact that it's raunchy and it's well written. So that's so funny that her name it is Fleabag. We don't know, that's just her name. We don't know her name. She's never addressed by any name in the show. And most of the characters don't really have names, which I find fascinating too. But Fleabag is such a nuanced character because right at the start, she just looks to us, looks at the camera, says, "You ever wake up in the middle of the night?" And then she says this whole spiel. And then she just gets her guy that comes over, who's named, officially in the script, he's named Arsehole Guy, but they say asshole, so I'm just going to say Asshole Guy. So he fucks her up the ass. I don't mean to be sounding so crass, but this is the language they use in the show. So with this show, it's funny because as he's screwing her, she's like into it, like they're having sex, but then she's talking to us as it's happening. So that kind of takes away from it in a sense. That makes it more not even intimate with her and the guy she's having sex with, but also just because she's talking to us, saying what she's really feeling, what she's really thinking. So that adds to the comedy of this show, but it also just adds another layer to her character that, well, what is she really thinking in this moment? And then so to just kind of talk about the characters. So, of course, Fleabag. And we learn in this pilot that her best friend, Boo, sadly committed suicide after she found out that her boyfriend had cheated on her. And we see Fleabag, so she has the one-night stand with the asshole guy. He fucks her up the ass. Then he's saying how... She says the next morning, so then he kisses you gently, and then he says something romantic, and then he says how, I've never done it up the ass before, and then she says, then you spend the rest of the day wondering, do I have a massive asshole? So that's the introduction to Fleabag, the character. And then we see in this pilot how then this guy on the bus, who in the script is just named Bus Rodent, and he has these small teeth, and she's not attracted to him at all, but then she just gives him her number, and then she's like, I hate myself, like as she's flirting with him and just kind of putting on the face of, sure, like let me just flirt with this guy. And then when she goes to the meeting to get a loan for her cafe, we learn that she's struggling with her cafe, which she had opened with her best friend Boo, and now she's just struggling on her own with it since her friend now sadly had committed suicide. And then she doesn't get the loan, and the guy's saying, she thinks when she accidentally lifts her shirt, and then the guy's saying, well, we don't do that here. We had that sexual harassment suit. And she's saying, no, I mean, that was an accident. I was just hot. I mean, look at you. Look at yourself. You think I want to sleep with you? And then he just asks her to leave, and he calls her a slut. She's like, it's so like effed up when she calls him a pervert, and he says slut, and she says, wow. And then we meet her sister, Claire. And I told my sister, I said, these two characters, their relationship reminds me of us, me and my sister. So, of course, I'm the uptight older sister, and Fleabag is the more free-spirited, impulsive one. But what I find interesting about the sisters is that, so there is that kind of tension there, and then Fleabag's explaining to us, my sister, she's perfect, she's so uptight, and she says all of that. And though there is that stark contrast between their personalities, it's a beautiful relationship. I love this relationship on this show. There's so much there. It's just true sisterly bond. And then when they go, she explains to us, our mother died, and Dad's way of dealing with it was dealing with two motherless daughters was to give them tickets to these feminist lectures. And then when the speaker says, at one point saying, how many of you would give up 5 years of your life to have the so-called perfect body? And only Fleabag and Claire raise their hands. And then they just say, we're bad feminists. So they have that kind of similar mentality in a way. And we see in that scene with Fleabag struggling, saying, I'm just going to ask her. It's like, I'm just going to ask her. Like she's just turning to us and saying, I'm just going to do it. And then when Claire says, how was the cafe? She's like, it's fine. Because she just chickened out, wanting to kind of ask her to loan her money, but it's one of those things where she has her pride. She doesn't really want to do that. So the meeting didn't go well, and then the thing with her sister, when her sister says, you want to go get a drink? She's like, I'm busy. So the sister's trying to connect with her. And then when she's sitting on the curb at one point, and there's this drunk woman about to pass out, and then Fleabag just says, hey, you, like, the woman calls her up, it's like, oh, you're a very nice man, thank you, and she puts her in a cab, this poor drunk girl, and then Fleabag looks at us like, really, this person thinks I'm a man? And then she's like, hey, you want to come home with me? And then she's like, no, you bad man. So it's her just in that moment trying to just see if she could pick up a random woman. It's like, okay, well, if she thinks I'm a man, let me see if I can pick her up. So it's just really interesting, her way of thinking even, and the whole time it's just kind of her trying to make connections, but then seeing obviously that she really is at her core, even though she's this really funny, interesting person, that really she's just this very lonely person. And then when we see her go to her father, and then she says this whole thing about how, well, I think I'm a bad feminist, basically is what it boils down to, saying all this stuff like, well, I'm conceited, I'm all these things, and then he just says, you got that from your mother. And then she says, oh, good one. So poor Fleabag kind of at this low point, and then she just, again, not wanting to ask for money, but that's really kind of why she was there too. And then he says, I'll call you a cab, darling, don't go upstairs. And of course she wanders upstairs, and then we meet the stepmother, who was their godmother, who then after Fleabag and Claire's mother passed, then godmother just swooped in to marry the dad. So dad, it's just dad and godmother. Again, we don't know their names. So just in relation to Fleabag, the names of the characters. So then there's this whole thing, like, so she's an artist, and then she tells us about how the mother isn't an evil stepmother. She's just a C-U-N-T. So funny. But then there's this thing that catches her eye, which is the sculpture of a woman's bust. And that becomes this big symbolic object throughout the show. And then she's saying, oh, can I have this? She's saying, oh, no, it's much too priceless. And so then when she's in the cab, then she divulges to the cab driver. He's saying, oh, so tell me what brings you, whatever he says, just, oh, entertain me. Tell me, you'll just give me something to make the time go by. So she explains everything about the cafe, and then about her friend, how, because we had seen the friend only in flashbacks, and then it's revealed when Fleabag says that, oh, and then my friend had killed herself, and so now I'm just running the cafe on my own, and yeah, I'm kind of alone. And the guy just looks away as if, he wished he hadn't asked. And then a fantastic reveal at the end, when she just kind of undoes her shirt, and then she's just in her bra, and then she reveals that she has stolen the sculpture. And then she looks at us all kind of sly and confident and pleased with herself. And in the script, again, this is why I love reading the script afterwards, whenever it's available. I wish there were more scripts, honestly, of episodes of shows, just to kind of get deeper insight into them. But in the script, in the final image, it says, 2 women, one real, one not, both with their innate femininity out. Because earlier in the episode, Godmother had said, oh, it's a celebration of her innate femininity, and then Fleabag says, and her tits, because her tits are out. So all of the themes just in that first episode alone are so interesting to me, about this person trying to kind of, in a way, take down the patriarchy, and then in flashbacks, how our friend's saying, no one will ever understand, whatever we do, we'll never give up this place, as in the cafe, and her with her sister, and her trying to be independent, but then we see her love life really is just kind of a joke, and we see how she's barely getting by with the cafe. She may lose the cafe, and then, but then it's in a sense, in the end, with her taking, like, in a way, like, just taking control. So just taking this, like, fuck you, I'm gonna take this sculpture. So in episode 2 is when we meet Claire's husband, Martin, who is an utter piece of shit of a human being. There is nothing redeemable about the character whatsoever. So he's kind of, in a way, to look at it in the scope of Fleabag's life and within the show, he's kind of the ultimate adversary, the main villain, however you want to put it, in the series. He's an utterly despicable fucking asshole. He's the true asshole guy, honestly. So slimy, so skeevy, such a fucking perv. Oh my god, my skin is crawling just talking about him right now, because how that episode culminates is when Fleabag goes to him first to sell the stolen sculpture to Martin. Then she mentions how just this throwaway thing that he's planning Claire a surprise party, and she's pissed off but secretly thrilled about it. And they go shopping. He needs help finding Claire a gift. He's saying how he's terrified of her. Also, we learn more about Fleabag's cafe, and that there's this whole theme to it with guinea pigs. And it's kind of like, why guinea pigs? That seems so random. But it's because when Fleabag in the past had given Boo a guinea pig for a present, and her saying, oh, it's so sweet, she's so sweet, and then naming her Hillary. And then I didn't realize, and well, it's not revealed really until series 2, that the cafe is actually named Hillary's Cafe, so it's named after the guinea pig. But anyway, when they go shopping for shoes, and Martin's saying, which kind of woman is Claire? Which kind of person are you in terms of these types of shoes? How each shoe is kind of, can be a personality for a person. It's like, are these high heels, these stilettos, these fancy gold shoes? She's saying, well, I was this person, the heels. I wish I was this person, these wedges, all these different things about shoes. And it's interesting, how a certain pair of shoes can have this sophistication to them, or they can be trendy looking. So then she mentions get these gold shoes. They're just really interesting. Claire wouldn't expect it. And then when they're out for a drink, and then when Martin says, you're like, then he's being a fucking douche, because it turns out he's an alcoholic, and he says to Fleabag, you know what, you're tipping, like, you better get out there, sweetheart, you're tipping just past your prime. Ugh, disgusting. And so it culminates then at the party when then he gives, so then she's like surprised. It turns out she just did the whole birthday party herself, the surprise party, Claire. Well, this is actually episode 3. My bad. So, whatever. So, in episode 3 then, when they go shopping, and then it culminates at the party, and Claire just did the whole thing. She acts surprised, and then Martin gives her the present, and then she's saying, oh, gold. So then we think for a second it's the gold sneakers. Then it turns out it is that gold statue that Fleabag had stolen, and, the godmother's saying, well, where is that? She knows that it's been stolen, and she's basically kind of accusing Fleabag, but she never overtly says that, though. So then Fleabag's like, oh, just hide it. She doesn't want her, of course, to see it, because they're at the party, too. Godmother and Dad. She just loves it, though, Claire, and then she's saying, okay, let's just hide it for now. I don't want to flaunt it around the guests. And then when she's just out smoking, Fleabag, and then Martin walks up to her, been drinking, I forget what he says, and then he kisses her. And it's so fucking cringy and disgusting. So he's kissing his wife's sister. Oh my god. Totally fucking gross. And she just stands there utterly repulsed. She rebuffs his advances, though. She doesn't kiss him back, obviously. And then when he just pulls away, and he just says, you're an asshole. Oh my god. So then when Fleabag runs out all upset, and actually to the party for her date, she brings along the bus rodent. And she ends up fucking him. He just fucks her, and he's just like, oh, that was amazing, wasn't it? And then she's like, yeah, amazing. And then he's like, having these teeth, because, with his little teeth, he's saying it's easy to know when people are pretending. So he knows that she was never into him. But then when Fleabag just abruptly leaves the party, and Claire's saying, what's wrong? Why are you leaving? And then when Martin steps out, and then she just doesn't say anything at that point, Fleabag. So then in episode 4 to me was the funniest, because so they go on that retreat, that women's retreat, Claire and Fleabag. And there's a moment when Claire is driving, and then Fleabag's talking to us saying, oh, she's going to say this. And then Claire is saying, when she's just kind of trying to finish her sentence, and Claire says, don't finish my sentence, you don't know what I'm always going to say. And then she says exactly what Fleabag just said. So it's interesting how Fleabag just pegs people. That sounds dirty. No, when she just kind of knows especially with her sister, and just like, oh, like, I know really what my sister is thinking. She just knows them so well. So then it's interesting, not to jump ahead, but jumping ahead to the series 1 finale, when her expectations of what she always thinks is true are actually subverted, but not to jump to that just yet. So in episode 4, when they go on that retreat, and it's just so fucking hysterical when they're at the door, and then at one point you just hear off screen someone shouting, sluts. And then Fleabag turns around, Yes, like that. Oh my god, I burst out laughing with that. That was so fucking funny. So then with this retreat, the whole thing is that they can't talk at all. And they're just kind of doing chores. So it's all these women just silently doing chores. And then when Fleabag's kind of just asking, well, what if there's an emergency? And then they just say, okay, you'll write it on the board. So then at one point when they're all outside, then you see in the background someone getting stung. And then afterwards, in the following scene, you just see on the board, the person had written, I have been stung by a wasp. Oh my god, so fucking funny. So then at one point when Fleabag wanders off, then she sees there is an all-male retreat going on. And at that retreat, they're all screaming, and you hear them saying sluts and all of that. With women, in this retreat, they are discouraged from talking at all. They're encouraged to just listen to their own inner voice, in a sense, by just not talking. So reconnecting with themselves in pure silence. Whereas with men, it's all about vocalizing, getting out all of this stuff about sluts, bitch, and then afterwards, then the man saying, okay, very good, now let's talk about this, there's this doll or whatever, and okay, so this woman, Patricia, and tell her what do we say if she got the promotion or she didn't deserve it, and saying, fuck you, Patricia, no, and then saying, good job, Patricia, whatever it was, all of that shit. And then Fleabag just kind of watching all of this, and the guy saying, oh no, you can't be here. So then when she is out for a smoke again at one point, and then turns out that none other than what she had seen at the retreat was that bank teller, whatever, not bank teller, let's see what he officially names, that guy, bank manager, that's it. That man that she had gone to for a loan in episode 1. So turns out he's at the retreat too. And so then when she's out smoking, and then he's talking to her, and then she just kind of zips her lips, so just gesturing that nope, she's not allowed to talk. So then he just does this whole outpouring of saying, what I really want to do is I want to go home to my wife. I want to put cups in the dishwasher and dry them, and then have her drink from those cups the next day. He just wants to return to normalcy and be with his family again. And Fleabag says how she wishes she could she's been listening the whole time, but then she just says, I just want to cry all the time. So then when she goes back, and the whole time with Claire too, when they're not supposed to be talking, and then at her birthday party, Fleabag had bought her a vibrator called the Burrower, and she got the battery. So, if you want to wank, I could just go into the bathroom, you can, do your thing. So then afterwards, though, when Claire says how, it must have been so, like, talking about her piece of shit husband, saying, like, you must have, like, gone through so much trouble to get me that sculpture. And then Fleabag just blurts out that she had stolen it, and then she says, your husband tried to kiss me on your birthday. And then she says, did he? And then Claire leaves. So then afterwards, in flashbacks, Fleabag is thinking about with Boo saying, you should be nicer to your sister, don't be so mean to your sister. And then Fleabag saying how I wish I could just yell at myself sometimes to get myself in line. So then Boo puts on her scarf and say, okay, do your worst. And then Fleabag saying, you better be nice to your sister and just take yourself seriously. So then afterwards, it turns out that Claire, when she just says, can you tell me where my sister is? When they're all just doing their chores. And then Claire had left the retreat, just wrote on the board, left the retreat, had to go home early, left money at the reception. Because she always just kind of goes too far with Claire, and it always pisses Claire off. But she never means to. It's just like her own weird, twisted sense of humor and everything. And then in episode 5, it's the anniversary of their mother's death. And there was also, at one point in a previous episode where, I don't even know now, it's only so few episodes and I'm already mixing them up. It might be episode 2, I think? Oh no, episode 2, I didn't mention also Fleabag's ex-boyfriend, Harry, because he's in episode 2, and they keep kind of getting back together, and then it always doesn't work out. But in episode 1, we see why it didn't work out. And she's like, he was wonderful. He said all the right things, and he was so great with my friends. And then my family loved him. But then he had left her because she, wasn't taking him seriously. She scared him in the shower. And she's like, I'm sorry, it was just a joke. And he was trying to be romantic, and he was trying to say, let's go without masturbation, just try to kind of really be with each other. And then he looked up he was saw her laptop and saw all these dirty searches in it. So then he finally left her for good. also a scene with her sister when they're at the gravesite visiting the mother's grave, and they see someone else mourning, and then Fleabag says, "Oh, he's here every day," or whatever. Like, he's just doing it for the sake of it, just kind of crying at different graves. And then all Claire says is, "Wow, you come here every day." And then afterwards, when she's just out on a run in the cemetery, she sees the guy, she waves at him, he waves back, and just kind of that one small moment of connection. So then in episode 5, it's the anniversary of their mother's death. They go to see their dad, have lunch with him and the godmother, and godmother just is just butting into the whole day. And she's an interesting character, though, because it's like she's another adversary for Fleabag, and she's just very passive-aggressive, and we see how she just kind of keeps Dad on a short leash in a lot of ways. When they drop food at one point, it's like, "Oh, no, we gotta pick this up, we don't want her to know." And then they just kind of make a joke of when Godmother walks in, and he just says, "Oh, this is just a tradition," and whatever. And then Fleabag brings along asshole guy as a date, and then Godmother is just drooling over him. It's like, "Oh, you're quite good looking." And she's played by Olivia Colman, who, fantastic in the role. And just, oh my God, like all of the tension and everything. And then with poor Fleabag, when she says how, when they bring up the cafe, she's saying, "Well, I'm probably going to have to close it in a few days. Can't afford to keep it running." And then she mentions, because beforehand, Claire mentioned that she was offered a promotion in Finland, but that she can't go because she's got her husband and her stepson, Jake. And so then Fleabag just blurts that all out. And then afterwards, there's that whole scene where Fleabag and Claire get into an altercation because Claire mentions something about the mother, and then Fleabag pushes her, and then Godmother slaps, it's Godmother and Fleabag getting to that altercation, and then the dad sees it when Godmother had slapped Fleabag, but then he doesn't do anything. So then Claire had brought back the sculpture, and then Fleabag goes to return the sculpture, and then Godmother's like, "Oh, well, the sculpture returned, like, magically." And then it's fantastic, though, afterwards when they leave. Then Claire says, "Here, she stole the sculpture back." It's just like a big fuck you to the godmother. And Claire, oh my God, sorry, I keep fucking up the name. It's not even that hard. Fleabag says, "You know, it's the coolest thing you've ever done." And she's like, "I know." And then I love this whole moment when Claire says, "Listen, I'm going to leave Martin. I'm going to give you the money for the cafe, and I'm going to fucking Finland." And it's just one of these cathartic moments, and oh my God, it's a beautiful moment. And then she's saying, "Should we try to hug?" So then they hug, and it's really sweet. That's clearly hard for Claire, and it's just really sweet. And then when she gives her the sculpture back, I love it. Oh my God. And then asshole guy shows up driving away on the motorcycle, and also the whole thing with the cat. There's the cat, Felicity, I think the cat's name is, and Fleabag lets the cat out, and then at the end you just see the cat walking off, and the cat's free now, and then Fleabag just looks at the camera, and then they drive off. And so then in the series 1 finale, they go to Godmother's sexhibition, just all of her sculptures, all erotic, and there's a wall of dicks. So funny. And then this is where Fleabag's expectations are really flipped, because at the beginning, she thinks that asshole guy is falling in love with her. And then it turns out, though, afterwards, when he goes to this exhibition with her, and then she thinks that he's going to say he loves her. And he says, "I'm in love," and then I have to tell her. And then she says, "Oh," and then that's it. It turns out he's in love with someone else. He's like, I can't just keep fucking around behind her back. And so then the other thing that really undercuts what she has always thought is that she thought, okay, so Claire is going to leave Martin. But then Claire shows up with Martin. And then she's just like, what the fuck? And then in this stunning, brilliant reveal, I don't want to spoil it for you. Again, go watch this show. Massive spoiler. Oh my God, when Claire says that she's not leaving Martin, she says, "Oh, he said it was more like the other way around." So he just pins the blame on Fleabag, that he's saying, like, she came on to him. She's saying, "Claire, that's not true." And then she's like, "How can you expect me to believe you after what you did to Boo?" And so then we see in a series of flashbacks that it turns out that the person who had sex with Boo's boyfriend was in fact Fleabag. So Fleabag was the person who fucked Boo's boyfriend. It wasn't just some random... She accidentally killed herself, though, because she wanted to just go to the hospital. Like, so, she just said, like, oh, I'm gonna run into the road and just kind of get a scrape, and then I won't let him see me in the hospital. But then she ended up killing herself, getting hit by a car and killing herself. And so it's one of those fucking amazing things because, wow, the build up to that, the reveal is incredible. And then it kind of makes you stop and think, wow, look at this character. How could you have done that to her best friend? But then at the same time, oddly enough, to me, I don't necessarily judge Fleabag for that. But then you see how now she's living with that guilt. That could she have stopped her friend? And was it really an accident, or did her friends truly want to commit suicide? And it seems that was just the breaking point for Boo. That it seems that if it wasn't that, it would have been something else. That's my interpretation of it. That she would have just found some way, sadly, to take her own life. But wow, it's fucking amazing. So then all of these things that are with Fleabag, why she feels so lonely, why she just has no real connection with any partner that she's been with, any romantic partner at least, thinking that, oh, the asshole guy, maybe he's in love with me. And then also there's a whole thing at the sex exhibition when she's there and then Godmother's like, oh, I'm so glad you're here. And then she just hands her a tray, puts on a name tag saying, okay, it's like as if she's just there to serve. And then she just does a whole scene where she drops all the glasses. And Dad says, I'm only going to say this once, I deserve to be happy. And Godmother says, I'm so sorry you had to hear that, dear, but you did have to hear it. And so I always love moments where it just cuts all the bullshit or everything that we've known about the character up until this point, and we just get to the core of what's really going on underneath the surface. So in this case, it's in this episode when Fleabag is at her cafe, and then none other than the bank manager and guy shows up again, and then she's saying how I'm just really lonely and I wish fucking never existed because I've fucked so much up of my own life by fucking, and I just can't help but wonder if everyone feels this way or we're not talking about it, or if it's only me, and if it's only me then that's really lonely. And so then she just admits all of this to him, and then he leaves and comes back and says how he's got his binder and he says, let's start again. Let's just start again with your business loan proposal. And then, because at first he had said I had found it funny when he first read it. So then he says to her, okay, so you have come to me because you would like a loan for your cafe for guinea pigs. And then Fleabag laughs and he says, see, I told you it was funny. So then she gets the loan. So, oh my god, it's just so incredible, and me just talking about it just doesn't do it justice, but, you know, I'm hoping you've seen the show, that you just kind of are just like, yes, absolutely, I agree, it's fucking amazing. And also, it's just insane because Fleabag at one point in that episode considers suicide, just kind of doing what Boo had done, just kind of going into the street. But so then there's the saving grace of bank manager to give her another shot at the business loan to save the cafe. So that's series 1, and theoretically the show could have, that's its own arc, honestly. The show could have ended there. That would have been a satisfying end point, that she finally had this moment of when she just cuts the bullshit and is honest with herself, and then she got what she wanted to save the cafe, at least, and that she had to kind of really reconcile with herself and just come to terms with, well, this is what I had done. It led to my friend's death tragically. And it's never shown if Fleabag tried to stop her. We just saw in bits and pieces of the friend saying, I'm just like when she's in tears, and then when she sadly is on the sidewalk looking at the cars, and then when she, well, before, you know, leading to her death. So before she walks into the street. So it just was a satisfying ending with Fleabag just kind of getting that closure and just really coming to terms with her own guilt and her own loneliness as well. And so then in series 2, you know, of course, we're introduced to the priest. Officially, he's named the priest. Well, really just priest in the script, but everyone calls him Hot Priest. He is really handsome. It's just like, wow. It's interesting. So in series 1, it's a whole new, fresh start. It's been about a year later since the events of In series 2, sorry. It's been about a year later since the events of series 1. And so in the first episode of series 2, we see Fleabag cleaning up her a bloody nose. So I always find it interesting when stories start after the fact, when some crazy shit goes down, then we backtrack and see what led to that moment. So that's how this episode begins. And then she turns to us and says, "This is a love story." This is a fantastic episode because it just takes place over the course of an evening at dinner. I gotta say, dinner party episodes are some of the best episodes of any given television show. Case in point, The View from Halfway Down from BoJack Horseman. You know how much I fucking love that episode. I've talked about it multiple times on this podcast. Case in point, also, Dinner Party from The Office. That's just 2 examples that are just standouts. So this episode, too, fucking amazing. But this episode introduces us to Priest. And at first we don't know who he is. She says, "I don't know who this man is." So it's them at dinner. It's her, Priest, Godmother, Dad, Claire, and Martin. And it's at first Fleabag saying, "Oh, you've done everything, literally everything." And we see how just with her cafe and with the asshole guy saying, "Oh, I won't have sex," and she just runs away. "No, can I at least go down on you?" "No," like she's running away. And then she says, "But you haven't spoken to your sister because your sister hates you because she thinks you tried to seduce her husband," or whatever. And then she says, "Oh, now your father is," and you see them at a gravesite. And I thought, oh my god, oh no. And she's saying, "No, just kidding. He's right there and he's engaged." So he and Godmother are engaged. And so it turns out that is their priest that will be marrying them. And it's just, this is the first instance again of how she's always so confident in the moment when she's talking to us, the audience. And then at one point she says, "No one's asked me a question in 45 minutes. And then he cuts her off saying, "So what do you do?" And everyone stops. So he's taking already an interest in her, Priest. And then she says, "Well, I own a cafe and it's going really well." And then they're all kind of like, "Oh, really?" Like, kind of not wanting to say that, though, like kind of just skeptical. And she says, it is. And then she looks at us, "No, really, it is." And so the drama just escalates in this episode so organically, so fantastically, where first off, Claire says how she and Martin aren't drinking because Martin is an alcoholic and she's just wanting to not drink with him, saying, "Oh, we're just not drinking, we enjoy each other more this way," and just whatever. They're supposedly in a good point at this point in their relationship. And then with Godmother and Dad, I guess officially in the script, Dad, that he's trying to give this whole speech and he just doesn't really, he's not a very coherent, eloquent speaker, so he just really can't really say much, but he's doing his best. And then Fleabag at one point going out for a cigarette, and then when she comes back and Martin's saying, "I just can't wait to see how you make this evening all about you." Oh, god, fucking damn. And then at one point when Claire is in the bathroom and then saying, "Oh, do you have," like, she has her period, but then she's saying, "Jesus, Claire, all that blood." And then she's saying, "It's not, get out your hand off of my miscarriage." So tragically, Claire has a miscarriage. And then she's saying, "Jesus, Claire, we have to go to the hospital right now." And so then they walk out, and then she just says, they're about to leave, and she says, "Oh, screw it, I'm having a drink." And she's saying, "Just sit down." And then basically Fleabag takes the fall. She's saying, and then she's saying, "Well, what's wrong?" And she's like, "Well, I had a miscarriage." And then the dad at that point is just so concerned, saying, "Oh, darling, you need to go to the hospital." And she's saying, "Oh, no, it's fine. For some reason, I just want to do this on my own," as if like speaking to the sister, my own crazy way of dealing with things. And so then it's abruptly cut short. But oh my god, I'm not going to repeat what Martin says. Oh my god, but then she deservedly punches him in the fucking face. It's like, thank fucking god. If anyone deserved that more, it was that man. So then he just was like, it's all discombobulated, and he accidentally hits Fleabag, though. And then at one point, the poor waitress, who was just this eager waitress throughout the night, just kind of eager to please waitress, so then she gets kind of clocked on accident, too, in the face. So then afterwards, when they all leave, and then Priest is out, we're back at the start of the episode with Priest saying, "Oh, they've all gone." And it's just really sad. It's just terrible. But then it ends with, afterwards, when Fleabag is just walking and then Claire hails her down. They get into the cab and then she says, I'll just tell them your address. We'll talk about this tomorrow. And then she says, can you take us to the nearby hospital? Because she's concerned for her older sister, of course. It's just unbelievable. And then afterwards, they just kind of like all the tension there between them. But then Claire just says, the priest was quite hot, wasn't he? And then Fleabag says, yes, so hot. And so then in episode 2, she goes to mass, and then when the priest sees her, he's all tongue-tied for a minute then. It's just kind of cute. So, and the priest I didn't mention who anyone is played by, but Phoebe Waller-Bridge as Fleabag, C.N. Clifford as Claire, Olivia Colman as the godmother, Bill Patterson as their dad, Brett Gelman as Martin, and Andrew Scott as the priest. So, then we see how she's just... afterwards, after the mass, and then he says this whole thing with he's like, oh no, it's just my little book, I write reviews, and then he says, oh, I'd wait 40 days and 40 nights for that dessert, and then she just says, oh goodness, I fancy a priest, and then she looks up priests and celibacy, what happens if priests have sex, and then her face just kind of in awe, and it's just brilliant because it's just like you're falling in love with a priest and that it's supposed to be a chaste person, a celibate person. So seeing Fleabag fall for this man and honestly him grow fond of her throughout series 2 in these 6 episodes, it's just really interesting to see because he is a man of God, he's a man of faith, and that's his true love. So then having Fleabag in his life, it kind of tests that in a way. And for her, she says too how she's just not having sex right now. She's just kind of off sex, taking a break from sex. In episode 2 also, she goes to that counselor because in episode 1 the dad had given her the gift certificate to a counseling session. So then when she goes to the counselor and then it kind of just boils up to her saying, just like, tell me what to do then. And then the woman's saying, well, I think you know what you're going to do. Then it's like, well, then what's the point of you? And at one point when she says, oh, so do you have any friends? And she says, oh, many friends. And she looks at us. Because the whole thing with her looking at the camera and breaking the fourth wall, it is that just thing where it's just she's looking at us and we're in on the joke, we're in on the true nature of what really is going on, or again what she's really feeling. So then it's absolutely fucking amazing where in episode 3 when the priest notices her breaking the fourth wall, when she looks at us at one point, when she just makes that face with the furrowed brow a lot, when she smiles at us, just kind of like, like the wink, the nudge to looking at us, the audience, and then he just says, oh, where'd you go just now? So that's so fascinating to me. So then it's him really truly seeing her in that moment of, it's like, oh, where'd you go just now? So it makes me wonder though, within the reality of the show, of what is actually going on when she's looking at us, the audience. It's just kind of have a blank expression on her face. I wonder what it is, because we never find out really, but it's just what he notices of, oh, where did you go? You weren't with me in that moment. So then it feels so invasive that at one point when he does it, in the following episode, when she just looks at us again when he visits her at the cafe, and he goes like, ah, and he turns around and looks at us, and at one point also when he looks at us and smiles, it's fucking amazing how with her, it's just, again, like, it's just like a friend turning to you and you're just laughing, like you're in on the joke. When he does it, it feels so vulnerable, as if he's looking at you as if you're just naked or whatever it is, like emotionally, or just like, oh, it's like, oh no, stop it, priest, like you're looking at me like you see me. Oh my God, it's brilliant how they do that. And he's just like cheekily looking too, just for a second. And she gets defensive then, she never answers him too. So it's just really interesting. Oh my God. And then also when the bank manager comes back and he brings a hamster, and she says, oh, it's like, oh, I brought a guinea pig. It's like, it's not a guinea pig, it's a hamster. That's in episode 5 though, when he just kind of the cafe is going so well, it's chatty Wednesdays, people have to chat with someone they hadn't spoken to. So seeing all the success of the cafe, it's fantastic. And then when the bank manager leaves, he's gonna like do a new job, and then he just wishes Fleabag all the best. And then he just walks off with he had the apron on, and she just says, "You took the penny." Like, it's really just, that's so funny. He took the penny, the bank manager. But so then with Fleabag and the priest, as their kind of relationship is heating up, at one point what's so interesting to me too, so typically when you have that dichotomous relationship between the two sisters in particular, one being so serious and uptight, Claire, and Fleabag being very much the opposite, and kind of a screw up and just really silly, not taking things seriously all the time, but just really funny, really interesting. That it's fascinating to me that usually, typically, if that were the case, you would think, in this case, Claire would be the cynical one, and Fleabag would be the one who is more optimistic. But in actuality, in this case, it's the opposite. Claire is more optimistic, and Fleabag is more cynical. There's a point where Fleabag and the priest are talking about the afterlife, and she says, "I don't believe in afterlife, I don't believe in God." And then when she had said that about "I don't believe in God," then the picture falls, and he says, "I love when he does that." So then when she's talking about the afterlife, she says she doesn't believe in any of that, and he says, "Why? Like, why don't you want to believe in something that's wonderful, just to believe in something that's wonderful, just for the sake of it?" And so it's just fascinating to me that she's actually, at her core too, an actually cynical person. Whereas with Claire, for instance, in the episode when it's a flashback about their mother's funeral, and we see how it's so funny in that flashback, that whole scene, the flashback when Boo is there too, but also with Fleabag saying, "Oh, why do I look so good right now?" And then everyone keeps commenting, "Oh, you look great right now. Grief looks really good on you." And she's just like, "Oh, I know. People are going to think I'm not actually sad." It's just so funny. But then when she sees Godmother swooping in on their dad, and she's like, "Oh, look at her, like, trying to move in on Dad." And then Claire says, "Can you stop thinking the absolute fucking worst of people? Not everybody wants cock." And she walks away. So it's just, but then it turns out she did want cock. She moved in on the dad, and it's so heartbreaking though. What's interesting too is that with the mother, we never see the mother at all in any flashbacks. So it's just, she lost these two important people in her life, Fleabag and Claire. Fleabag lost her best friend, which that's still living with that guilt, but in series 2 she's kind of moved past it though. So that, and then also their mother, of course. And it's just so tragic in the flashbacks with Fleabag saying, "I have all this love, I have nowhere to put it, I don't know what to do with it." And Boo says, "I'll take it. It sounds wonderful. Like, give it to me. Give me all that love." It's tragic, so heartbreaking. And I also love in episode 3 when Fleabag caters the event for Claire's work events to give like that big award to that woman. Then of course, Fleabag picks up the award, it shatters everywhere. She runs back, she gets something else to replace it. And then when Claire gives the award, and then it's of course the sculpture again, so then afterwards she has to get the sculpture back from that woman Belinda, and there's a whole fantastic scene where then Fleabag's saying, "Oh, well, people are shit," and then Belinda says, "Don't say that, people are all we've got." And then she talks about the pain of a woman, how we are born with pain, we go through menstrual cramps, labor pains, sore boobs, all this stuff. And then with men, they have to invent reasons to feel all this stuff. So I love that whole scene. It's just these women in two phases of their lives and saying, just enjoy it now, enjoy the flirting, enjoy all of that. And then Fleabag tries to pick her up by kissing her. She's saying, no, honey, not because, no, I didn't mean me. And she's saying, "Well, why?" And she's saying, "Well, honestly, I'm just too tired." So then she gets the sculpture back after all that. So that scene's just fantastic. Also, leading up to with the priest and Fleabag in episode 4 then, after the whole flashback with their mother's funeral. And then Fleabag goes to visit the priest. And there's an interesting part when, to me, I found it interesting because it doesn't really necessarily have a payoff. I wonder why it was even brought up. But when he says, "Oh, are you a nostalgic person?" And she says, "Yes." And he says, "You love Winnie the Pooh?" And she says, "Yes." And he says, "Oh, I love Winnie the Pooh, Piglet." And he just kind of taps his heart. And she says, "Piglet." That was just interesting to me. I wonder why that was kind of brought up, because I wonder if he was going to bring up a quote or something from Winnie the Pooh. There's that quote that just comes to mind to me anyway about, "If you live to be 100, I want to live to be 100 minus 1 day, so I never have to live without you." And it's a picture of Pooh and Piglet. So that just came to mind when he brought that up. So anyway, that scene that was so poignant, he tells her to confess her sins. So then we just stay with her, though, the whole time in the confession booth. So then she says this whole thing about what she really wants. And then she says how, I just want to be told what to wear in the morning. And then at first makes me think, oh, she wants like a partner who knows her intimately and can like kind of help her with just the small things in life. But then she says how, no, I just want to be told what to do with everything because my decisions aren't really the best decisions. And it's so heartbreaking, that moment. Like, oh my God, it's like tragic. And then it's just immediately dials up to a really fucking steamy moment where then he opens the curtain. And it's like, oh, hello, Father. It's like, makes me like want to fan myself. Like, oh, he's like really giving her that lusty, steamy look. And I thought to myself in that moment, I thought, oh my God, no, is he going to give into temptation? And then he does, and he kisses her. And I thought, oh my God, this must be blasphemy. Like he's breaking his celibacy of kissing her. Then it's getting really heated, and she's about to take off his pants. And, you know, they're just, like, really making out, and, oh my God, and then the picture frame falls, so that shatters the moment completely, and then he realizes, I shouldn't be doing this, so that just kind of ends the whole steamy moment between them. And what's interesting to me is that just initially seeing that, I thought, oh, wow, so he kind of gave into temptation, and also this just reminds me that there was a great scene when they go to that silent place about, oh, well, just see what comes up. And there were just a few of them sitting there. And then she just is like, oh, I don't believe in any of this. And then all of a sudden she's like, oh, I'm about to get up what I'm about to say. And then she just says, sometimes I think I wouldn't be such a feminist if I had bigger tits. And that's, you know, that's just so funny. That's another funny added thing that kind of just brings them closer, though. So, because, like, learning each other's worlds. So, anyway, with the whole scene with them making out, then it's disrupted with the painting falling. God disrupted them. God said, how dare you do this? My first thought was that, oh, he gave into temptation. He's human. He's, you know, he wanted to make out with her. They were going to have sex, possibly. But in giving it more thought, what I really think of it as now is kind of him giving her what she needed in that moment, and what he knew she wanted was she wanted him. So in a weird way, it also felt like a selfless thing. And in the following episode, he says how he can't officiate the wedding anymore. And then she says, oh, okay, it's fine, off you go. And then she immediately snaps. And she's like, oh, send them away, because they had been coming every once in a while because she was going to do a portrait of them, which she had said in episode 1, I'm going to do a portrait of you girls. So then they leave. And then there's the whole thing with poor Claire when she messes up her hair. And then she's saying, don't, like, tell me the truth. Then Fleabag says to us, it's horrendous. She's like, oh, it's fine. It's very chic. And so then when they go to the barber, and then Fleabag's saying, hair is everything. We wish it weren't. We wish we could think about something else, but it is. It's the difference between a good day and a bad day, all this stuff. But then Claire's love interest, whom we had met in episode 4 at that award ceremony thing, his name is also Claire. He's her Finland partner. He's really into her, and she clearly, like, is into him too, because at one point when she says to Fleabag, I'm not in love with him, but she's still with Martin at this point, though. And so it's just funny, though, the two of them, that, like, he's really into her, and he's just saying, oh, I loved your haircut, and all of that. So it's so funny. And so also the whole thing with Martin suing Fleabag for punching him, and then Claire saying, oh, look, I'll give you a great lawyer. She's saying, I wish this wasn't happening, but it is happening. And then it's so fantastic when she says, what you did, it was unforgivable, like punching her husband. And then Fleabag says, I know. And then Claire just says, thank you. Like doing what she's always wanted to do in a way. So then the lawyer in the script, he's just named Hot Misogynist. And then he just talks about how, like, he's so great at sex, and then they end up screwing Fleabag and the hot misogynist, and she's saying, oh, he's not, he won't be. And then as they're fucking, she says, oh, he is quite good. So then afterwards, it's a callback to the pilot when she's saying, you know, when you're just standing around acting like you just got in, and then, like, you know, he's gonna come over so they can have sex again. And then Priest shows up, so then she has to send, then when the guy shows up afterwards, she has to send him away, and she says, you made me come 9 times, and then he leaves, he's all happy. And so then, with Priest, it just kind of, then he's saying, you know, it just kind of builds up and escalates, and because, like, he was kind of torn after he had almost, like, they had their passionate moment. And then when he says how, I think you know exactly, I don't know if you want to be told what you want to do, you know exactly what you want to do. And she's like, oh my God, we're going to have sex, are we? And then he gets pissed off and he says, stop doing that. Like her, again, talking to us, because for him, it's just like her kind of escaping reality. So fascinating. And then he just says, we're going to have sex, aren't we? So they just kind of accept the inevitable. And then in that final scene in the episode, they're making love. They're not it's a big difference, like making love and fucking, so. And then it's so intimate for her, and then she just pushes the camera away. It's just like too intimate for her. It's just, she's like, no, you can't see this. Oh, it's fantastic. And then in the series finale, it is Dad and Godmother's wedding. And first off, with Claire, with Martin, and he's saying like, look, I know I'm terrible, but don't leave me. It's like, I do things and I make you laugh. You said that was important. And then he's saying, I'm not going to leave you until you're on your knees begging. And then she gets down on her knees saying, please leave me. And then he leaves. And then this moment is so beautiful to me when Fleabag is telling Claire, like, go to hit, like, what she's saying, what am I going to do? I can't just leave and go to Claire, the man she really truly loves and wants to be with, and like just leave Dad's wedding to go there. And then she says, go to him. And then she's saying, I wouldn't just like go, like, what am I going to do? Like, go run through the airport? I wouldn't do that for anyone but you. That moment just truly was so touching to me, just showing how much she truly loves Fleabag. Because also in episode 3, the whole thing with the award ceremony, when we saw really how kind of jealous Claire was of Fleabag, when she's saying, oh, you're always going to be interesting with your dead friend in your quirky cafe, because she was pissed off that she like had accidentally stolen Fleabag's joke because she couldn't think of one herself. And she's saying, well, these are my friends and we're not friends, we're sisters. So then with her saying like, I would only do that for you, it just shows truly, like, even despite her own insecurities and feeling kind of jealous in a way, that she loves her sisters so much. And that's just so sweet and touching to me. And so then she takes off her extensions she has and she runs off to go be with Claire, the true man of her dreams, the love of her life. And so also I love with Fleabag and with Dad, when they couldn't find Dad, and then he's like up in the attic, and then because it was also poignant in the series 1 finale when she's kind of wondering like how he moved on. He's saying, you think about Mom, like he's saying, all the time, because it's the same with her. It's like, you think about your friend all the time. So then in this scene, when then he's really eloquent and saying, darling, you're the one who knows how to love better than anyone, so that's why it's so painful for you. Like, you love better than anyone else. And she's saying, I don't find it painful. She's saying that to us. So she's the one who truly knows how to love. So that is just such a beautiful thing too. Oh, it's heartbreaking. And then also the payoff with the painting is fucking hilarious with Fleabag and Claire. Hysterical. Oh my lord. It's also beautiful too how, coming full circle, Fleabag has the gift, giving it to Godmother. So then she opens it and it is the sculpture again, coming full circle, and her saying like, I just wanted to get rid of it. And she just says, thank you. And she's saying, I'm surprised you took such a liking to it. It's based on your mother. And that's like, whoa, shit. So then in the final scenes of the show, when Fleabag is at the bus stop and she just missed the last bus home, and oh God, that whole scene is so poignant and devastating and brilliant. So her saying to Priest that it's God, isn't it? And he says, yes. When she tells him, though, what's so difficult is that I fucking love you. Like, no, let's just let that sit for a minute. He goes to open his mouth to say something, and he just says, no, let's just let that sit for a minute. I love you. Let's just leave that out there. He just says, it'll pass. And it's so heartbreaking because he can't leave the church for her. He's a man of God. He's choosing his faith over her. But then when he stands up and he says, I love you too. And it's just so devastating because it's so tragically true that it will pass, unfortunately. At the same time, though, it's clear that this is the first man she's ever truly been in love with. That just really resonates. That just really comes through. And also that he did love her too. I know it's only through her point of view, obviously, but I really think that it probably was that much more difficult for him to kind of fight those urges, and that when they do sleep together though, and to really have his walls come down with her and with him, obviously, with him really seeing her whenever she's looking at us, the audience. So then when he leaves, and then what's so fantastic, it's so hilarious and interesting too, then a fox comes along, because earlier on in previous episodes when he was just saying how he's scared of foxes and like, oh no, must be a fox. So then when there's a fox, and then she says, oh, he went that way. Because then it's her kind of accepting that, okay, well, I love him, but now I need to let him go, and that he loves me, but then that's it now. It's just kind of, that's the end of their romance. That's the end of, as she said in the beginning, this is a love story. So he has to still face his own fears. So it's like, okay, there's the fox. That's an interesting symbolism too, I found fascinating. And that was even more beautiful and brilliant than when she has her bag, she takes out the sculpture again, so she stole it back, so a piece of her mother. So it's so sweet. She gets up and then she looks at us and she shakes her head. She's like, no, that's it. She's walking away. She looks back and waves, and that's it. So it's just the end of that now she doesn't really need us anymore, the audience. She's saying goodbye to us, the audience. It's just absolutely amazing. It broke me over and over so many times, this show, on different levels. And just at its core, love. Again, that's always just a universal thing, but the way it's depicted in this show in particular is so beautiful that really the dad was onto something with him saying that she knows how to love so deeply and profoundly. So with her saying goodbye to us, that now it's just, she's moving on now. And that, yes, it'll pass, as tragic as that is, with him saying that, but also it's at the same time that whenever if she ever does fall in love again, that she's always going to compare it to him, to the priest, that was really the love of her life. So it's just absolutely beautiful and incredible and amazing, this show, of her just looking at us and then just saying goodbye to us, and then that's it. Now she can move on. Now she can just be on her own and just become a new person that she's meant to be. Oh my God, absolutely amazing. I can't praise it enough. This is indeed a love story. And with that is going to conclude this week's episode of Storytelling Saga. You can follow the podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Be sure to check out storytellingsaga.com, and feel free to send me any questions, comments, or writing prompts by emailing me at storytellingsaga@gmail.com. Next week, what do you do with the BA in English? I'll let you know when I discuss Avenue Q. Until then, thank you for listening, and remember, write what you love. Christmas time, please keep his